connecting with wonderful speakers who have shared their yoga journey with us and our audience. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we bring you an extraordinary person, a lady who has taken yoga to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, and the Arab world. The lady in concern is Ms. Nauf Al-Marwai. She has been associated with Shobit University as our alumnus, and currently she is based in Saudi Arabia. She is the founder and president of the Arab Yoga Foundation, which she established in the year 2008. She is a leading practitioner and promoter of yoga and a healthy lifestyle. And one of her achievements is to get yoga accepted as a sport in Saudi Arabia. Due to all her contribution to yoga and the propagation of yoga among the general public as well as yoga teachers, the government of India recognized her service to yoga, and Ms. Nauf was awarded the fourth highest civilian honor of India, that is the Padma Shri, by the President of India. Nauf has also worked with the Saudi Sports Ministry to make yoga a legal sport in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from 2017 onwards. She is a member of the board of Yoga Benchmark Group under the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. She has received yoga training in different systems of yoga, including Yoga Iyengar Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Hatha Yoga, as well as she has been trained in Ayurvedic techniques, as well as lifestyle coaching, and she also has a degree in psychology, which helps her in her lifestyle coaching systems. She has been awarded with the Women Empowerment Award because of the work which she has done for the empowerment of women and the propagation of yoga among women to promote women health and positive and healthy lifestyle. She has also received the Yog Ratna Award by the Chief Minister of Kerala. So now list of awards and achievements is a long one. I think rather than going into these lists, it would be more fruitful to speak to Nauf and allow her to share her ideas with us. But before I do that, I would like to invite Honorable Chancellor of Shobit University, Kumar Shekhar Vijayendra, with whose blessings this entire program is being conducted. I would invite him to kindly say a few words of welcome to our guests this morning. Sir, please.
Good morning, everybody. This is indeed a pleasure for me to be with you all to celebrate life with yoga. As Dr. Poonam Devdutt mentioned, this is a week-long celebration. And when everybody in the country, in the world is talking about International Yoga Day, more talking about asanas, pranayam, and other things, we decided that we should celebrate in holistic manner the complete life. And if we have to talk about that how to celebrate life with yoga, I believe the best person to be with us can be Nauf Al-Marwai, a yoga acharya, a Padam Shri, and by the way, the meaning of Nauf in Arabic is the peak of the mountain. And she has put herself, not only herself, even yoga, this ancient science, this wonderful science on the peak of the mountain with her. Welcome you, Nauf. This is indeed a pleasure for us to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, in Indian ancient philosophy, we always say that the most strong one, the one who should be worshipped, the one who create is who? The women. Because women is the creator. Women is the strength and women is the motivator. So you symbolize all those three in you. Historically, if we look at in Middle East, in Arabic countries, in Egypt, we find that historically also that some form of yoga was there. But in modern world, in today's world, you have introduced yoga to Middle East, to Saudi Arabia as a sport, and this is such an achievement because we all know about your journey. You started from Australia to Kerala to back to Saudi Arabia, and this journey had been journey of empowerment. You know, when somebody says, a doctor says to me that, look, you are not fit physically. So generally what we do, we start living with anxiety, depression, and we decide, okay, fine, Allah ne, whatever Allah decided, we will do that, and now it's over. But you decided to fight with that. And not only fight, but you decided to give it back to the society. I was reading somewhere and where you said, I am not afraid of cancer because I have a tool called yoga. And this is exactly what it is, because yoga is not only a fight from diseases, yoga is an instrument, a tool, a way to enjoy life completely. And it is so easy to celebrate life the day you are balanced, your body is balanced, all those Patanjali sutras are there in you, you can enjoy it. So now we are looking forward to listen to you, to your journey of an empowerment, your journey of enjoyment, and your journey of empowering others. And this is also a matter of pride for all of us that you are the only one from Saudi Arabia who had been conferred the fourth highest civilian award of India, Padam Shri. And we all are proud of you indeed.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Thank
Looking forward to listen to you. Yeah, over to you, Dr. Devdas.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for your very kind words. So now, welcome once again to Shobit University. Our audience is very keenly waiting to hear from you. So please tell us something about what you would like to share regarding yoga and celebrating life with yoga.
So, because the title is Celebrating Life with Yoga, I focused on how yoga can make you happy, but from a scientific, psychological point of view. So, I'm going to talk about just how yoga works on your nervous system and your brain chemicals and
Okay.
certain psychological disorders.
Okay. So you would like to make a presentation for us, or
Yes, please.
yes? So would you like to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start the presentation, but I'm going to give just general idea about that before I start.
Yeah.
So since my background is in psychology and I was trained on clinical psychology, and I started yoga before I actually joined the university. When I started yoga, that was a year. It was a sad year for me, but then it didn't continue to be
So
sad.
now, would you like to share a little bit about the background before we get into the presentation? Maybe you can tell us what was it that motivated you to enter this whole field of yoga? What were those life circumstances?
Yes, I lived a very painful childhood because I was born very weak and
Okay.
sick. And later, when I was 17, 18 years old, I was diagnosed with lupus erythematosus. And in 1998, my parents decided with the school that I can't continue going to school no more because of my struggle with my joints, my body. I even had an anxiety and panic attacks, and the doctors couldn't really, before that, diagnose what is my issue because this disease wasn't really known here, and it takes years to be diagnosed in the past. So today,
Right.
maybe medicine is better, but That time I had to struggle for years until they found out what was the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I started practicing yoga then. A lot of
Okay.
symptoms really improved: anxiety, insomnia, joint pain, vitality,
Mm-hmm.
health
Okay.
issues, even digestive issues. And I started again going to school, and I wanted to study psychology. And during the
Mm-hmm.
time I was studying psychology, I noticed a lot of evidence of what yoga might be doing to your body and mind. And that time in the year 2000, there wasn't a lot of studies about yoga asanas. Most of the studies were about pranayams, meditation, and relaxation. But I was
Right.
still able to, yeah, connect that with other sports researches. But nowadays, there's a lot of studies about a lot of health issues that are related to asanas, pranayams practice, and meditation. So we are in a pandemic time, and I thought maybe it would be better to introduce the audience to the benefits of yoga for the mental health and
Right.
well-being,
Right.
as well as celebrating life with yoga is a very nice.
So I think it is a tremendous achievement that it talks about your psychological strength, that facing so many health issues at such a young age, to the extent that you could not go to school, and yet to come out of it, to take it all in a positive way and to find a solution. I think you have set a tremendous example to so many people who may be suffering from health issues, but ordinary people tend to get depressed, tend to get anxious, and tend to step back. Here, you have surmounted those obstacles. And through your own challenges and through your own personal journey, you've now become a motivator and an example for so many others. So, thank you for sharing your personal challenges and your personal journey out. And yes, now we can get into the presentation that you have for the audience.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. So we will talk about yoga for better mood.
Yeah.
So even if yoga doesn't help completely in some issues, it can be a very good tool to overcome mental disorders and psychological suffering, and also take people to a very healthy mental dimension and health well-being. So I just want to introduce the audience to the concept of the nervous system. We have the brain in our bodies, and it's connected to the spinal cord, and nerves branch out of the spinal cord. So I just want to give them an idea. The nerves are small units. We call it a neuron, and it has a body and an axon. So whatever we think, feel, as emotions or as thoughts, or if we want to do something, the orders come from the brain and goes through the spinal cord and to the nerves, even if it's sending a message to a certain gland for something. So we have basically two parts of the nervous system. We have the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, and this is also mentioned in the Hatha Yoga philosophy. In even it was called the Sushumna Nadi, and this is basically what the mind or the brain is basically the physiological organ, and the psychological manifestation for that is called the mind, the chitta and the chitta vrittis in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So this part also concerned the ancient yogis in the past, and if we look at yoga as a science, it borrowed a lot of concept from the Samkhya philosophy, and the Samkhya philosophy is the psychology of the Indian philosophy and laid the foundation for all the Indian philosophies after that, especially yoga and Ayurveda. So it's important to highlight that this was known since long time ago. It just the science was not that developed, and the anatomy studies that people could really look inside the body that time. So there is the peripheral nervous system, the second part of the nervous system, which is called the sensory somatic nervous system, where we feel, we have senses, and we get the information from the outer world, through the senses like the skin, the eyes, the nose, and it goes to be translated in the brain, or what we call perception. And this was also highlighted in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and the Samkhya philosophy
Yes.
concepts. And then we have the somatic nervous system. If we want to make a move and it's voluntary, we can initiate an order from the brain to the parts of the body to move. And here where we do the asanas and practice certain practices in connection with different parts of the brain, like the cerebellum, the basal ganglia for control, for balance, for coordination, for control of breath. So the sensory somatic nervous system is connected. And like Iyengar Father always says, the senses and the movement in the skin or the muscle are very connected. So the Iyengar yoga system basically focuses on this awareness, movement,
Yeah.
and the feelings and the alignment of the body. So this, what is Iyengar Father calls the intelligence of the body and the mind. And we have a motor brain cortex and a somatic brain cortex. So we get our sensations and feelings in one part of the brain, which is here, and the movement in a different part of the brain. Just to give a general idea how the brain works. The most important thing we talk about when we talk about the mental well-being and the stress and anxiety and how yoga works immediately with those symptoms or disorders is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is made up of different types of nerves. The sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response in the human body that we can initiate when we practice yoga nidra or meditation. And there is the enteric system, which yoga calls the solar plexus or Manipura chakra. It's a nerve ganglia in the digestive system, and where Samkhya philosophy and Ayurveda calls it the Agni of the body and the digestive fire, whatever. It has so many names in the Indian philosophy. This system is the autonomic nervous system, and this system, we don't have control over this system. We can only control the activity of this system by practicing relaxation or pranayama, especially breath correction, because there is a nerve we call the vagus nerve, and it branches out from the neck until the diaphragm. Deep breathing during yoga practice and moving in asanas, twisting, forward bending, regular breath must. The vagus nerve is a branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, so it releases certain hormones like the norepinephrine and relaxes the body and the mind. So why yoga is different than other sports system? Because yoga has a certain collection of practices that comes together to make the human system in a coordination we don't see in other sports, like the breath, the focus in the movement, the awareness, the concentration. And that, when I talk about focus, concentration, or what Iyengar Father calls the memory of the asanas, we're talking about parts of the brain in the cerebellum and in the basal ganglia and different lower parts of the brain. When we talk about the breath or the autonomic nervous system, we're basically talking about the limbic system. We're talking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So yoga was scientifically proven to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and stops the overexcitement of the sympathetic nervous system. And I'm going to talk in the upcoming slides about the excitement or overexcitement of the sympathetic nervous system and how does it hurt our health and mental well-being. Even physically, it affects us. So this is the autonomic nervous system. Here is the parasympathetic nervous system, and here is the sympathetic nervous system. Most of us, we live here during our working hours or during our days because we're stressed out. There's a lot of notifications, cell phones, a lot of stress and noise to deal with. So this part will always produce stress hormones like adrenaline, and it will affect all these organs and all these parts of the body. And this is what we call stress. But when there is ongoing severe stress, these symptoms increase and cause other health issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome issues, and anxiety, insomnia. And it can lead to depression if it's not handled or cured at that time. So the parasympathetic nervous system will actually stop all these reactions, but also some people have overexcitement of their parasympathetic nervous system and they need to find balance. So when we talk about Hatha Yoga, there is the concept in Hatha Yoga of nadis in the Indian philosophy. And the nadis are basically the way the old yogis and philosophers tried to explain the connection between the body and the mind and the anatomy they discovered from their observations and from their studies that time in the absence of the technology we had today. So the old studies, or the old philosophy says we have a sushumna nadi, which is basically the spinal cord, and it's the main energy channel. And we have the Ida and Pingala. The Ida and Pingala represent the Ha and Tha. The Ida is a nadi that goes from the left nostril and crosses over the Sushumna nadi, and the Pingala is from the right nostril and it actually they cross each other on the Sushumna nadi. And why it's called Ha and Tha? Because the energy of the moon and the energy of the sun. And old philosophers were trying to explain that time that we have activity and passivity, and they both have to be in balance in the human body for us to reach awareness. And this is scientifically right, because when you look scientifically at the activity of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, if we have good control over the sympathetic and the stress, and if we allow the parasympathetic to work normally, we develop what we call a good mood or a balanced mood or immunity to psychological disorders or ability to control stress. And this was what the old yogis trying to explain by studying the nadis and explaining the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in their own language, calling it Ha and Tha, the energy of the sun or the energy of the moon. The energy of the moon is a lunar energy, and they mean by that cooling the body and cooling the system. And the Ha is the energy of the sun, and they mean by that the heat increase or the activity of the body, and the balance reaches to better awareness. So this is scientifically and psychologically right, but that time, of course. So it's very important to highlight here the importance of the yoga philosophy, and potentially Yoga Sutras actually explained a lot of things about that. Let me just show you a closer picture of how the nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves branch out and they form ganglia. And the old yogis noticed maybe, and people who are involved in studying the bodies, they practiced yoga and they also were involved in healing other people, studying Ayurveda and different philosophies. And what they explained does not go against the scientific findings at all. If we look at the human body, whatever the old philosophies mentioned as chakras or as the koshas or as the vayus explains what is going on inside the human body in the scientific language of that time. Even the science found out that we have an excitement system and a passive or a relaxing system, and both have to work in harmony and be under control. And overexcitement can cause either dullness or over stress, what the Indian philosophy calls rajas and tamas. So we have to be in a sattva or a sattvic state of mind. And this was Patanjali Sutras was written just The whole thing was about how to control the mind. Yog Chitta Vritti Nirudaha is the sutra that explains how yoga um, stops the overexcitement or overaction of the mind through the nadis. So when we talk about the parts of the nervous system in the human body, we are talking about different levels. We talk about body, mind, and emotions. And we all know that yoga works on all these dimensions of the human body. We don't see our thoughts, we don't see our emotions, but we feel them and we realize them. And that's because the human nervous system works in a very unique way, and we have something called the brain cortex. The brain cortex actually controls our thinking, our learning, our observation, but also it is somehow connected to our emotions along with different parts of the brain. So, what we call the mind is basically the central nervous system where we can see all the higher thinking through the brain cortex, and it is considered in psychology the conscious mind. But the body is the sensory somatic nervous system, and in psychology, we call it the subconscious mind. That's why we talk about body language. We sometimes do certain psychological analysis from the body language or the outer body language. If I get a person who comes to the clinic with a round back and a sad face, the body language shows depression. So it's basically the body with its senses and its muscles and all the collection of the voluntary movement and non-voluntary movement. So when we talk about the emotions, we speak about the autonomic nervous system, which is the unconscious mind, and it's the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and the enteric system of the digestive system, which is so involved in the psychology of the person. We get irritable bowel syndrome, we get some different digestive symptoms connected to our psychology, and a lot of us experience that. So why yoga is different than other sports? Because when you practice yoga, you involve all these parts of the nervous system in one session. And you train the mind, you train the breath, you train the focus. Whatever you do on your yoga mat, you carry out of your yoga mat. Why? Because the nervous system and the brain learns through conditioning. This is the conditioned learning. So we learn in our lives through conditioning, but even practicing yoga is a certain way of conditioning, but by freeing yourself from stress and from anxiety and from unwanted psychological symptoms. That's why we use the asanas and the pranayams to control the chitta vrittis of the mind and the emotions. And this is what exactly practicing yoga does to our bodies. And the chitta vrittis can be an anxiety, can be depression, can be panic attacks, can be certain phobias. And a lot of us experienced a lot of different psychological unwanted symptoms during the last 2 years since the pandemic time. Isolation, fear, loss of jobs, and a lot of things. And I want to here just mention a very important principle of the yoga philosophy, which is the five koshas, the panch koshas, which is the anandamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, and all those dimensions of the body, the energy body, and the mental body, the intelligence, and the bliss. And I want to highlight the anandamaya kosha. So the yoga philosophy, and you can find a very important reference to what I'm talking about in Iyengar Father's book that is called Light on Life, because the whole book is about how these five koshas work together, or dimensions, the human dimensions. And for me, as a psychologist, I consider this the oldest holistic approach theory in the history, because it talks about the body, your energy inside your body, what you eat, what you put inside your body, how you breathe, and your mind, the stability of your emotions and thoughts, and your intelligence. And if those are all organized, then you reach to the Anandamaya Kosha, The Ananda means the happiness or bliss. And this is scientifically right. If your body is healthy, if what you eat is healthy, if you practice regularly, move, stay active, practice yoga or any other type of activity, but I would prefer yoga because yoga is so complete. And the Munamaya Kosha, the mind, the chitta vrittis will calm down and will allow your focus and your intelligence um, to work on a certain level of planning, high intelligence, higher thinking, and so on. So let me just highlight the Anandamaya Kosha. So we have certain brain chemicals that actually controls our mood, our appetite, our thinking, and also our behavior. And there are certain more important neurotransmitters. The most important in our bodies are the acetylcholine, that is also connected to the movement, the dopamine. The dopamine is known to be the motivation and reward neurotransmitter. And that's why you see a lot of young guys and youth use different types of drugs, especially the amphetamines, because it increases their ability to use and secrete more dopamine, and then they become dependent on that. And the norepinephrine, of course, that relaxes you. The serotonin, that is called the happiness hormone, that is when you have less serotonin, you start developing depression symptoms. That's why they give people antidepressants to inhibit the receptors of the serotonin. And the GABA. The GABA is a very important neurotransmitter, and people with depression or an anxiety or the disease fibromyalgia, the chronic fatigue, showed less GABA on their results. And they used to give them medications to improve GABA levels, to improve these symptoms, but unfortunately some of these medications can cause dependence. But there are studies that proves that yoga can develop the levels of GABA significantly in the human nervous system and the body. And the glutamate also, it's another neurotransmitter, and the body makes GABA also out of it. And the endorphins. The endorphins were known for a long time to be called the athlete's hormone, that reduces body, emotions, and mental pain. But also, there's a lot of scientific studies that proves the increase of endorphins regularly in the body of yoga practitioners. And I want to mention something about serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter of the nervous system, but surprisingly, only 5% of serotonin is secreted in the nervous system, and 95 in the digestive system. So that takes us back to the unique Indian philosophy or yoga philosophy and the Ayurveda that spoke about the Agni and the digestive system and the prana and the apana. And whenever you go for Ayurvedic treatment, the first thing they do, they make sure that your digestive system is working properly, whether by cleaning that up or putting you on fasting to rebuild the strength in your digestive system. And unfortunately, people who practice yoga don't get to study these things, or people who do not practice yoga, they're not aware of how important yoga is. Yoga proved to increase the GABA and serotonin levels and decreases the depressive symptoms in the human body. So let me just tell you something about the Ananda mind. And there is a very unique neurotransmitter in the human body that is called anandamide, and it was named based on the Sanskrit concept of bliss and happiness. If your body is healthy, if your mind is healthy, if you eat the healthy way, your body starts producing anandamide, and it's like you have your own less chemical inside your own body. And this was the old yogis already attained. what they call the Ananda state. So the Ananda mind is motivational, is reinforcing, and it's called the bliss molecule. It is the messenger molecule that plays a role in many bodily activities like appetite, memory, controlling pain, controlling depression, and even fertility. Maybe you heard stories of people who were under stress. A woman was under stress and she was unable to conceive. But some people would say, since I get healed, or since I started healing my depression or my anxiety, or since I started practicing yoga, I conceived. And this is true. You can find so many stories about that. So the name is actually taken from the word Ananda in Sanskrit, which means bless. And this takes us back to the Indian philosophy, and connecting that with psychology, I would tell you that practicing yoga can enhance your mood, your brain chemicals, reduces your stress levels to help you live a healthier and a better life. So let's put all these parts together. Yoga effect on brain chemicals and mood. You must be asked, okay, how can yoga help my anxiety? Let me tell you just very fast that anxiety is just an overexcitement of your sympathetic nervous system. What yoga teaches you is control over your breath, because whenever you get anxious, your heart rate increases and your stress hormones levels go high, your breathing becomes faster. What we teach in yoga, a lot of techniques that has two ways of controlling anxiety and stress. Number one, reduce the excitement of the sympathetic nervous system through just the practice of asanas and pranayams. Reduces the excitement of the sympathetic nervous system and increases the activity of the parasympathetic nervous system. That alone can help control anxiety. But also we teach certain techniques to control the mind in a situation that you're suffering or you're under stress or you're struggling with your health. Panic attacks. Continuous anxiety can turn to panic attacks. And panic attacks sometimes come with hyperventilation. When you practice yoga, you start developing less and less panic attacks, and it disappears with time. Phobias and fears. They are reactions not like panic attacks, but in a presence of an object that scares you. And from my experience in my own classes, a lot of phobia patients that I didn't intend to really help with phobia, they're just coming for yoga for their health, they noticed a decrease and a significant decrease in their phobia levels. I even get calls from their doctors wanting to collaborate in researches to know why yoga helped in that. But simply phobia is also overexcitement of the sympathetic nervous system. Insomnia. Also, people who have an anxiety or active sympathetic nervous system develop insomnia and they can't sleep properly. And we go again, speaking about depression and mood symptoms. For a long time, people were saying yoga does not heal depression. Yes, yoga does not heal depression alone, but practicing yoga regularly improves certain brain chemicals that fight depression symptoms. So yoga can be a very good life modifier for people with depression. And finally, people with cancer, people with rheumatic disease, old people, children with different health issues, cancer patients, breast cancer survivors. Yoga is proved scientifically to improve the quality of life for people and with different health issues or healthy people as well. And there is another very important thing, that yoga helps in pain reduction for people who live with certain psychological or physical health issues. And pain reduction. So pain reduction is very important because pain reduces the quality of life for people, elderly who suffer from arthritis, or people who are out of traumas, certain traumas, psychologically or physically, people who are suffering from chronic disease. It's very important to note that the pain can reduce the quality of life, cause them isolation and less activity and productivity. And we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you for listening. And please, if you have any questions, please feel free.
That was wonderful. Now, you have given such a scientific presentation. In your presentation, you combined the anatomy and physiology of the body along with human psychology, and you've explained to us how all of these are affected by the yoga practice and the practice of pranayama. So I think this has been so much so informative for all our viewers because normally, for common mind, yoga is a system of exercise and breathing, but we do not really know the pathways through which it affects the body. Oh, some internet issues. Uh, so, as I was saying now, this has been a wonderful presentation and it will go a long way in explaining about the scientific basis of yoga. So it is not just that we have to practice yoga because we've heard our elders saying that, but there is a solid scientific foundation for the claims that are made by yoga. So now, going beyond the presentation that you have made, we would like to also hear a little bit about your journey along with yoga. As you said, you were facing some challenges in your life, and those challenges promoted you to practice yoga, and I'm sure you have received so many benefits. So, what made you take yoga to the general public in a big way and introduce yoga in the Middle East? Would you like to share some of your
Yeah.
the challenges that you face or the high points of your journey?
Yeah, so basically, when I found all these benefits, and I was very happy at that time and excited to feel that I'm doing something in my life, and I was still studying psychology. I get excited. I started talking about it, and people would ask me things. And when I graduated and I was a volunteer in the mental health hospital in Jeddah, I moved to Jeddah. I was in Riyadh. Um, I think she was disconnected. So I started noticing how people would really be interested to practice yoga. A lot of people would come and say, "No, help me to learn yoga. I want to learn." And that time in the mental health, my boss was also a health educator. She had a TB program in the Saudi national TV, and
Okay.
she invited me to talk about it. She said, "No, what you're saying is important." She's also a clinical psychologist, and she works
Mm-hmm.
with victims of domestic abuse, children and women. And she said, "Let's do something about this." And she interviewed me. And that was how I started having regular TV appearances talking about how yoga is important locally in Saudi Arabia. And people just started asking about it and they were interested.
Okay. So you found that the general public was responsive or did you face any difficulties along the path? And also, we would like to hear about some of your other experiences, like you've been across the world, you have been associated with other countries also. So, what kind of reception did you receive in other places apart from India and Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, so people were interested. They were really focused on the health part of it. And
Hmm.
let me tell you, here in Saudi Arabia, because we are the biggest country in the Gulf region, and we have different regions and mixed cultures. So people
Yeah.
are always looking for whatever that is good for their health and well-being. And there is a strong health movement in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Yeah, so people are
Right.
really interested in different regions. And even in some small towns in Saudi Arabia, you would find yoga teachers now. About other countries, always was welcomed in Bahrain, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. I have a lot of students like in every Arab country.
Hmm.
I trained a lot of people, so through them we do a lot of activities. We sometimes train teachers as part of
Okay.
our charity work. We train them for free. A lot of women in different
Hmm.
Arab countries that is affected to empower them and to help them also use yoga for their health and well-being and help others as well.
Yes, I see from your resume that you have trained thousands of teachers also. So it seems not only are people practicing it on a on a casual basis, but there seems to be a regular movement for people to train and hold classes of yoga across the country.
Yeah.
So uh, I also see that yoga has been accepted as a sport in Saudi Arabia. So are young people also showing a lot of interest in yoga in your country?
Yes, and different age groups, children are interested because yoga seems also challenging and interesting for them. You know, they're flexible and they like to challenge themselves with the asanas. People between the age of 18 and 45 years old are doing it for health,
Okay,
generally for physical and mental well-being. A lot
right.
of them have their doctors follow up, but they come and say, "My doctor advised me to do yoga for general health and well-being."
So it is extremely gratifying to know now that in your country, yoga is also being connected in a big way with mental health. In most countries that we see, yoga is primarily seen as a tool for physical well-being. But what you have expounded today and the presentation that you have made a beautiful connection between the mind. So I think that is the essence of yoga, and the word yoga itself means union. And you have focused on the union of the body, the mind, and the emotion. So it's a beautiful exposition that you have given, and I'm sure that all our audience will get a very good grounding in the basics of yoga and the philosophy behind the science of yoga. So, thank you now for making us aware of the scientific basis of yoga and the influence of yoga on mental and physical well-being. It was a pleasure talking to you. And once again, I would like to congratulate you for all achievements. These are really outstanding achievements. And I can surely say that you are a prime example of women empowerment. So many of our women audience who are listening to you and to us today, they take inspiration from the fact that you overcame so many challenges, and after having overcome those challenges, you did not just keep it for yourself, but you decided to give it back to society and to the world, not only just to your own country, but to the world. So, thank you very much now for connecting with us. There have been some repeated internet issues, I'm aware, but technology sometimes is uh, is a benefit, and sometimes it tends to create some difficulties for us, and we have to face both of these, the challenges as well as the plus one. So once again, thank you, and I wish you all the best. And I hope that you will continue to spread the message of yoga, not only in your own country and in your own region, but
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
So now, again, I am here. Like Dr. Poonam Devdat is having some issues with the connection, I believe. Yeah. So it was a very wonderful scientific presentation. First of all, I must thank you for that, because today what is very important, that we have to connect our ancient wisdom with today's science. Then only many people accept it. And it was one of the best presentation what we had today. And so thank you very much. We would like you to say something for Shobhitians, like a lot of youth look at you as a model. They look at you as somebody inspiration. So will you like to convey some message for the Shobhitians?
Okay, so it's education is the most important tool. I'll be very honest with you. If I didn't go back to school and if I did not complete my studies with psychology, I wouldn't have maybe continued yoga because I wouldn't understand what was going on. Education is a very strong tool, and no matter how much we struggle, health wise or financial wise or social life, we should always keep our education goals away from these issues, because by education we develop our minds, and there are studies that says if you graduate from high school and don't continue your higher studies after a few years, your IQ actually reduces, because the brain is a unit. You have to use it to make more nerves and more experiences, and we experience through learning, through working, and this world always needs us to develop, to work, to look for more findings, to contribute to the science and the technology and the development of our own countries and society.
Okay, so it is such a wonderful thing, and naturally, generally, what happens that students, especially the youth, they have their excuses. The first excuse is health, second is time, third is money, and fourth is possibility. But you have proved that nothing stops the men and the women who wish to do wonders. So thank you very much. I believe Dr. Poonam Dev that you had a wonderful session with her, and
yes, sir.
I'm really, really impressed, and especially those students, those who are busy, especially the youth, in their own self, like in mobile, social media, and all those things, they should come out and they should see how beautiful the world is. The world made by wonderful yoga teachers, yoga acharyas, and those who are inspiring us. So now keep inspiring everybody, keep inspiring us, and please stay safe. And we are looking forward to meet you soon in India, because you are an inspiration not only in your country but globally.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for joining us, and it's indeed an honor to have you with us. Looking forward to meet you soon. We all wish you all the best.
Thank you. It's my honor too, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, namaste.